there we are.
Are we there yet? Oh, there you go.
I added something to the very end of the clip, by the way, on this. See if you notice. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Live. It's the second Thursday of the week, it feels like, because we've had 2 LEGO Masters shows this week. And so it's good to see everybody. Good to have you here. Great to have everybody. And we have Ant Bandit and Mrs. Ant Bandit joining us today. I'm glad you're here. We have Ethan is joining us. We hope some more of our friends will be joining us as we go. Yes, John Luke was in the promo there. So it's actually one of my favorite lines from Top Gear, because he sits down to talk to what's his face, and he goes, "You've got to be one of the biggest stalls we've ever had on this show." And he just like, this must be a very terrible show. It's so very British. One of my favorite things. So we had to join it. Hey, Moto is in the chat too. So welcome everybody to
Hello, Moto.
Hello, Moto. All right. So, Ant Bandit, you haven't been with us in a while. Can you tell the super secret projects you're working on for super secret people in your animation business?
I mean, it's not gone great lately, so I don't know if I have anything good to say. But I've been working on some client work that will eventually show up on Lego's social media. Some of it already has. I don't know if you guys have seen. One of them went up on Instagram, that Zen Garden animation. That was mine. So it was up on their Instagram. It was part of a series that I've been working on for the last few months for them, doing stop motion. It's been a long project, longer than I expected, but that's fine. So I'm about to wrap it up in the ending phases. We've been watching the show, watching OGB, like we've been catching up. So we're excited to be here and talk about the show, though. So
good deal. By the way, Brick Dude, you need to buy something so I can send you your minifig that I owe you, by the way. I'm just going to say. So anyway, one of my good customers over there at the Whatnots. So that's awesome. I guess you probably can't say whether or not you've met Katy Perry and animated Katy Perry.
She's like in the bathroom right now. She can't come out, but yeah, she's busy, you know. So.
Okay.
She's tied and gagged.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting me banned on Facebook again. That's great. Thank you very much.
That was like 2 minutes, Dana.
That's right. All right. So let's go ahead and we have to put the Canada percentage. We have to, but we have to discuss the fact that we didn't lose anybody this week.
And it could have been a Canadian.
And it could have been a Canadian. Yeah. Canadian was on the line. Yeah. No, we're a Canadian on the line this week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot. So, all right. So go ahead and put the statistics up there, and let's look at the percentage of Canadians on the show. Do I have to add that? Oh, there we go. All right. So number of Master 7, episode 7. So 57 U.S. content, 57%, 43% is Canadian. So, okay, you guys are doing great.
Yeah, well, I was like, in my head, this was the week that if an American team got eliminated, we'd be 50-50, and that would just surprise me because of the exchange rate and everything. So, like right now, the exchange rate isn't quite accurate, but it's getting close.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So how are the ratings in Canada?
I don't follow ratings, I'll be honest with you, but I will Google it quickly.
I haven't tracked the ratings for this season either. So
I'm curious how the ratings are doing with all these delays too. Like I hate to see it. It feels like it's getting the short end of the stick.
Well, that was the same thing with season 2.
That's true.
It was preempted by the Olympics, All-Star game. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the season two programming, they're like they didn't apparently flip forward in the calendar to go, oh, the Olympics. Well, hey, what a big deal that is and everything. So yeah,
At least we're getting a season 4, which is exciting.
There we go, season 4. All right, who's all right, Ethan? I know you're not, but or maybe you are. I don't know, but
I don't know. Who knows?
That'll be the twist of season 4. Is you and Dom just burst through again on episode 3.
They just have a Lego wall that shatters, and they're like, "Oh yeah!"
And then this pops in right here. So. And what if another Canadian shows up? It could be this right here.
And that's to apply, because if Simon gets in, I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. So if Simon loses on the show, out. What you say? I'm sorry. What'd you say, Mark?
That would not be fair to everyone else on the show if they put Simon on there.
Yeah. He
Just
is.
give all the golden bricks to Simon. Okay, we're done.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, what Simon would do? He would like speed build his build, and then he'd walk around the room helping the other teams with their builds.
Well, and maybe that's why we haven't had an all Canadian show, because we'd all be doing that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Like the stories, right?
They would.
Yeah. How many stories would be in the parts?
It would become Lego Masters Season Canada. The drinking game would be the subtitle of it, because every time someone said, "Oh, sorry," you drink. And the Americans would become just completely sloshed watching that episode.
That's true. All right. So just as a sidebar, social media, I can't remember. I don't know if it was Steven or which Steven from the show showed some pictures when y'all were off camera back at wherever that hotel is, kind of hanging out, dancing together and all that kind of stuff. So you guys got to mingle and hang out at the hotel outside of the show, which season 2 did not. They had to be sequestered to their room, so you guys could get out. Is that true, Ethan?
Yeah, but
we don't have your guide to say no or yes and everything.
Yeah.
But
okay, I'll tell you what happened is, we were in the first we were there with all the other contestants in the first episode, but then they sent us to another hotel, so they all partied the first couple of episodes, and then when we came around, they're all worn out.
They're like, "Hey, let's party," and they're like, "No, we're going to bed."
Yeah.
So when you guys walked on as the surprise team, they had met you previously. Did they know you would be contestants though?
Well,
careful what you say.
I don't know.
Okay, I know the tale from other sources other than you, so you're in the clear. So they bring in, was it 13 teams? They bring in like 15. They bring in a couple extra to the final tryout, go through the stuff and everything, and then they call 2 and they have their season. Okay, and when they called them, you guys were called, if I understand, but you hung around.
Yeah, they sent us to another hotel, and we
You
did
were
nothing.
sequestered like a jury.
Yeah, yeah, they sent us to another hotel and we did nothing for 9 days. Oh, hardest part of the thing.
You couldn't bring like video games or anything, or
we didn't bring in.
That would have
we thought we would be building. It's like I don't want to.
That's right. Don't talk about casting if you're on the show. Moto may give you the alert.
Okay.
By the way.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But anyway,
at least when the camera's not recording,
That's right. And 17 people, they're you're good. So, but anyway, so some of us may be talking to the show, all that kind of stuff, to be in season 4, which I'm glad that they've gone ahead and said there's a season 4. So this will come on. Was it a Motel 6? I just need to know. Did they throw y'all into like Fleabag on the other side of the interstate? Okay.
That's a good answer. It's all a blur.
It's all a blur. I get it. Anyway, all right. So with Ethan, you don't need to chime in on this and everything. This is us as viewers and everything. Do you think the ending where no one was going home was that the original plan, or do you think conspiracy-wise that they changed it, knowing who was in the bottom? Ethan, you're out. Don't say anything. We are proud of y'all and proud of what you guys pulled off and everything.
It was a slick move. It was a slick move.
It was a slick move. Yeah, we'll talk about that move that looks like it might not have been as I mean, I understand why you made the choice, and it was a good choice, but then no one went home, not because of that. But do you think they looked at who was in the final and they said, let's keep them? I got heads nodding here. I got heads nodding there. Shenanigans. Were there shenanigans?
I think that now granted, we will talk about
This is for you. Don't say anything, Ethan. This is your NDA. Don't say anything. Go ahead.
But we will come back to talk to Ethan because we will talk about the creative licensed editing that's been going on, and we've seen multiple instances of it. The Reddit has been a flurry of certain things about that. But if you watch that ending and just the whole way that Will Arnett's like, well, if you had read the website, you would know that nobody's going home. And it was just like, boop, boop, boop. Good night, folks. See you next week. What? It was just so schlocky. So it just didn't seem as well crafted as other things they've done. So I call shenanigans. That's my point. That's what I'm saying.
I think if they had spent some more time, like kind of explaining or like spent more time on it in general, it wouldn't have felt like so producer done. Like it just feels like they're like, oh, we don't want these teams to go home. Okay, no one's going home.
Yeah. So I want to look back at all the previous seasons of all the shows that we can see for Lego Masters, like all the different countries, because I think normally when there's a power function specific challenge, they usually don't send someone home because they know that power functions can fail very easily, and they don't want people to get kicked out because of a technical issue or because they just don't know power functions as well.
What about the possibility that when there's 2 Canadians in the bottom that they can't send anybody home?
Well, there was only one Canadian in the bottom.
Well, no, wait a minute. No, Jeff has a valid point here because if I think back to both season 1 and season 2, the first episode, which we always looked at, hey, it's the first episode, nobody's going home. But both of those first episodes were power function centric episodes. Because the first episode in season 1 was build a theme park and everybody was using power functions. Season 2 was build a parade float and everybody had to use motion in the power functions. And both of those episodes, nobody went home.
They also don't usually send someone home in the first episode because that's just not fair. You don't get to know the team. It's like, oh,
I agree.
Hello and goodbye, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, regardless of power function, of that being a possible theory, I think it really just makes it a true injustice to the first team that was sent home. At this point, it's like, that hurts even harder at this point in the competition, regardless if it was a audible that the producers called. It's like, I would have loved to see more of them because their build on the first episode was still pretty good. I really liked it. So I feel bad for them.
What is the new system? Not power functions. What is it?
Boost.
Powered up.
Boost.
Boost.
Powered up. Powered up.
Power less functions.
Yeah.
All right. So, Ethan, we'll talk to y'all. They focused on y'all in the design period a little bit at the beginning of the show. Made it look like you guys were off in like toaster brain, can't process thing. You don't have to
even
be
I'm rooting against myself watching.
Gosh, that guy's a loser in his team.
Yeah.
So were y'all really an hour into the competition and with no design, no idea?
It was definitely over dramatized, but I mean, we spent more time coming up with a story with our build. So it was probably about an hour. It probably is accurate. About an hour.
Did you do that?
He's here.
There we go.
Okay.
You gotta help this guy out.
I got thumbs.
You need to make a thumb on this, like a stick where you can like lift up like a Lego.
A sign.
A thermometer.
You felt the thumb.
Press that like
His
button.
thumb was like, no.
I'll be like Caesar. No, I'm kidding.
All right, so
sorry, a bit late.
No, you're good. You're good. So you that was a little bit accurate. That you guys now were y'all really just like we don't know what we're going to do, and then like in 2 seconds came up with an idea, or were you kind of getting there through the process?
I really wanted to. Our goal, the hardest part is having a team go on the same page. So me and Dom were just alternating ideas. I really wanted to go the portals like magic route. But he was like, that's too much like Harry Potter. So he, I guess, watched Monsters Inc. instead and went with Monsters. And I was like, great, we're on the same page. And I thought it was a good idea.
You guys killed it.
But yeah,
I'm assuming that when you made your camps, you were told you couldn't use licensed things from known, TV series and movies. So, I mean, I was sitting there thinking, oh, we could. Oh no, that's licensed. I was like, oh, this. Oh no, that's licensed too.
Haven't I given
One
you
thing
enough
that's-
exposure during mock challenges that we can't use licensed themes? That's the foundation of mock building.
Yeah, I'm saying brainstorming. It's easy to for your mind to go there. So.
Yeah.
One thing
Dana,
that was
Dana's exposing himself. But anyway,
one
Not
thing that was
publicly.
interesting
The camera.
was one thing that was interesting was I believe this challenge started immediately after the pirate challenge, and I think we had 3 hours of build time that day, but they wanted a title for your camp that night, and that was really difficult after a long day. So that's why we're just gonna spend this time. That's why we kind of it was divided 11 hours. The first 3 hours we're gonna come up with a solid plan. So that first hour, I mean, we probably grabbed bricks right after that first hour, which is definitely
was an
stressful.
hour. Is that right?
It was. Yes, it was.
Okay.
And that was, it worked out in our favor because we had it very planned out. They didn't. Not gonna lie, they didn't really show our mock that well on the show. But that's a whole other story. But it was definitely a lot. It made, having a solid plan really helped us out with who does what and really well organized.
so, and by the way, Pink Wheels is in the side chat saying at Pirate Camper. They said, don't do anything boring like a space camp. And I about quit the show. I'm like, come on. That's the most offensive thing I've ever heard in my life.
Base camp would have been cool.
Yeah,
But
well, you lasers and aliens and
We already got a space episode on this season though, so like, I mean, that's something I thought. Like, I feel like with every build, it's like I don't know, but I assume that it's like, hey, just try to stick with something that we haven't done theme wise, So space, I feel like, was out from that episode.
The funny thing is, he says that now, but when we were watching the show, as soon as they said don't do something like Space Camp, he goes, "Oh."
Good thing they didn't have.
I
anything
almost said a bad word like Will Arnett almost said. So
We finally got to see that side of Will Arnett in the show when they like bleep.
Yeah.
By the way,
I literally went to space camp, you guys.
Oh man, I did like the dragon camp though. I was pretty stoked about that.
That one was really cool.
I didn't notice like when they were working on it, but like the fact that it was circling and going, like the heads are going up and down, that was seemed very difficult.
Yeah. Ethan, I had a question. It went backwards. Like, did they do that for fun, or did it actually go backwards?
That was a accidental thing because I believe each team had 2 minutes to set up their power functions.
Wow.
And get everything ready. They couldn't get it, and it just started going backwards, and it the time went out, and they couldn't do anything.
Powered up is so bad. It's so
really
awful.
is.
I don't know.
What me and Dom.
Go ahead.
What me and Dom did with our build was, we're going to do something simple. We use the remote as it's turning, and when we're presenting our build, we have our hands behind our backs using the remotes to the
Nice.
That's great. So,
it's too risky.
On your season, or was it powered up?
It was powered up because you can have the remotes or the phone.
Yeah, powered up has its own remote system. Yeah.
But on season 2, was it the same way, or was it power functions?
Oh, I wish it was power functions, but no, it was powered up, and it's very Bluetooth heavy. It's very reliant on Bluetooth, which is not as good as just a direct signal.
Yeah. Imagine
it's bad.
Imagine 8 teams or however there are trying to connect Bluetooth.
I can't imagine that.
Oh man,
It's
it's
so
like you're linking
bad.
to someone else. Up, sorry.
Okay, go ahead and admit it. So they were trying to get their dragons to go, and you got your remote behind your hand, and you're running them backwards. That's what you're doing. Right?
No,
I
no.
was I was looking at the problem. I was looking at the problem they were having, and they had like a central gear, and like the motors were all in the head, right? And they had the central gear, and they had two gears on either side. And I have a feeling they had both. They had two motors hooked up, and when they started it up, both motors were running in opposite directions, so it was just shaking. And they finally got it to work by getting one of the motors to go the backwards direction, and then it just happened to go backwards instead of forwards.
One
That
thing
sounds
that I
I think
will
that's
say.
what they did.
One thing I will say, I don't know if this, but we finished our builds on Friday. Judging was Monday, so these builds sat for
Oh,
like.
So how
Yeah, but
much
you
does that break time allow you to kind of mentally work through like your story when you come back? Are you sitting there going, "Hey, we should put a minifig over on this part"? I mean, do you game plan or you just try to like take a break?
Well, they do interviews on Saturdays and then Sundays are
okay.
completely off. And
Okay.
we're interviews. That's usually an all day thing.
All day?
There's
Sort of. No, you're good. You're good. But what they'll do is go ahead, Ethan. I'll let you answer. I won't talk over you. Go ahead.
Cut
one
him
thing
off if we get in trouble. There we go.
You won't. It's fine.
there are times where we're in the interview rooms for hours just waiting for us to say what they wanted. What.
So basically, it was like torture until you confess the crime.
Yeah.
No.
Oh no.
Keep talking.
Well, I'll just say for us, this is we would go in for a couple of hours and then just sort of speak in present tense of what's going on, what's happening, and then we would just do our thing for a little while, and then we would finish, then we go home. Now sometimes we get up at like 6 or something, get up early, which we wouldn't want after that week. But other times we get in at like 12 and then we'd be off at like 5 or something. So Saturdays could be nice or really hard at the same time. It depends. But we would just sit in a room. It's kind of warm, but not bad. And we would just talk in present tense. And we would do that for most of the Saturday. And then we would just go home. Or go back to the hotel. So it wasn't that bad. We weren't building. But yeah, it could have been worse. So.
Yeah. One thing that was difficult for me was talking present tense. I was always use past
Isn't
tense.
that
And it took a
hard?
good little bit to.
It's because you're not egotistical enough to speak for yourself in the third person. Now, if you're used to doing that, as I've seen Matthew do it regularly, it becomes easy to talk in those different tenses. So
I just want to say that I am extremely sympathetic because I was asked on Tuesday to do a video clip with a local news station about the election, and then they said, "Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We might know. So we want you to pretend this candidate won. Now act like that candidate won and give us a quote." And I'm like, I don't know the future. Like, how am I supposed to put myself in that headspace? And they're like, okay, now the other candidate won. Now give us a quote. And I'm like, this is hard. I was shocked at how hard it was. Sorry, I killed it.
No, you're
basically good. Improv is not your strong suit, teacher man.
Well, thinking in some future dimension is not my strong suit.
Yeah, I gotta.
Okay. Yeah. Steven left. He got a phone call. He's this is so and so from Schwartz, whatever, and he's getting told to hush. Anyway, so all right, good deal. So let's go. So we were happy for you guys, and we'll talk about the builds that you guys pulled off your win. It was almost a flip flop of last week in a way, bottom to top and everything. They made it look like you guys were in a lot of trouble, but it seems like you guys were kind of in charge and control, and you guys probably made the camp look more like a camp or that everybody wanted. But that's a difficult thing to pull off. Can you talk to us really quick how the teams were actually struggling with that mode or what?
So I everything is very broad. They say build a summer camp and go, do something like fantasy, you know, go big. So, you know, everyone kind of, some teams go kind of beyond that, where it's basically, it's, you know, it depends on what the, you know, the challenge is. For us, we wanted, you know, something very, you know, I'm homeschooled. I've never been to summer camp. So we were like, let's do something, a summer camp. So we came up with monsters. You know, that was something that kind of matches our personality of, you know, kind of the goofiness. Oh, I guess of our real personalities. But we chose monsters, and it was really fun to, you know, have that fun style. And, you know, I took a lot of my experience from past mocks into this one. And there's one thing that I was really proud of is in the back, they don't really, not gonna lie, they don't really show up that well. There's no really good overhead shot of our mock. That I wish it was a little, the camera is a little taller, because we have like a big monster house build in the back that I was really happy with. But there's no really good look at that, which is unfortunate. But that was really fun to build. One of my favorite parts was the front sign. That was one of the first things that I built, was the blue sign that said Monster Camp. And one thing that's funny, you know, that was, since that was the first thing, when we were done with our build for the day, it was like 3 hours, that first build time. So I remember some of the producers like, we're gonna have to look at this. This looks a lot like the Cookie Monster. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. But luckily that next day they were like, this is good. So if my backup plan was to add green dots, if I had to do something like that. But I was really happy with how that
looked like it was like hair. Like the texturing on that gate was top notch. Like that really stood out to me, like seeing how like fuzzy it looked. It was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
So-
can you give us an idea of the brief? What was the requirements? You know, the height, depth. Did you have to stick to minifig scale?
Man, I gotta remember. All I remember was summer camp. Man, this was a long time ago. But I remember, you know, summer camp. There's no height restrictions, I don't think.
Okay.
So you could go as tall as you want.
Can I ask?
But it had to have power functions. That was, you know, since this was a power function, had to have 2. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Two movements.
Mm-hmm. And a light. 2 movements and lights. Like it didn't really show. We had light. I'm pretty sure lights were in it. I put it in the fire, and I used light bricks, and I basically had it where you could pull it, because the light bricks would die. So I had the fire basically have I had 4 light bricks for the buttons, and it used friction to turn on and off. And that was really cool to just slide it in. They didn't show a lot of like the cool stuff with our build.
Yeah, I would really want to know. Can I ask? I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the prize, like the 90,000 bricks. Can you talk about that? Like, what did you get? What are the logistics of that? Like, do you have them? Like, did they send it to you? Or are you gonna get them? Like, what's?
I hope to get them. It should be something that is done next year. You know, everything happened in March, but it's been a good bit. But hopefully I'll be getting them soon. But
do you get to pick what you get, or like, are they just gonna send you bricks?
They said that we get to pick. I'm not sure how the process will go. But we should be able to pick. I'm sure it'll be similar to what the brick pit is. But I'll definitely, if I can pick, get some snot bricks, tiles, and reddish brown parts because they break.
You're gonna need more sorting bins.
Get plates.
Oh yeah.
It'll be hilarious if all of a sudden you pick a bunch of bricks and they send you the burnt ones from when they blew stuff up. You know, it hangs straight off the set.
Wow, that would be so mean.
I can't wait to make a TikTok video of you'll never guess what came in the mail. And it's a 30-minute video of me going through all the parts that I got.
That is insane.
We do
Congratulations
here.
on
It's
that.
called lug bulk.
Yeah.
So which wall?
Well, we didn't get it for free. Like,
No, we didn't get it for free.
Which wall are you going to knock out so you can put all these bricks in your Lego ring?
Oh man, I don't know. That's a problem for future, Ethan. That's something that I say a lot. Oh, that's a problem for future, Ethan.
Fair
It
enough.
comes back in time and slaps you on like, why didn't you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
All right.
tomorrow
Go ahead.
we own brick troubles, right?
All right, it is time for the builds. Let's go. All right.
Yay.
We should have
Best Will
theme music for
Arnett
that part.
bit of the season so far.
I thought the colors were boring.
It's a little bland in some spots,
building.
but
Nothing really stands out to me.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Look, we've added another Lego Master.
He got. He's like, oop, wrong chat.
The ghost of Greg over here.
There he is.
Congratulations, sir. And it's not about Lego Masters. Congratulations.
Yes.
I hope everything went well. So.
Thank you. It did. It really did.
Wait, what?
Oh.
He is referring to.
Yay! So what are you doing on here?
She is asleep right now, so. Hence my lateness.
Oh, well, you have a little bit of an excuse. We won't.
Thank
hold
you.
that
I have
against you.
mama and baby priorities right now, so.
It's like, do I stay for the baby or watch the pirate ship episode of Lego Masters? Because it happened pretty short.
Yeah, I know. I actually didn't see it when it came out because I was at the hospital, so
Well,
you're like, hang on, honey. Here's the judging.
That's about that. I thought about saying, Devin, can you hold off? 1 hour, only an hour. I know that you're in active labor, but I've only been on one TV show. So but she said no, so I stayed.
Can we cut that Pitocin real quick? We got a show to watch here.
Right. And they're like, they come in there, you're in there like turning it down.
You got the little tube and you're kind of pinching it. Hang on, baby.
Nice.
All right, the builds. Let's go. Welcome, by the way, Greg. We're honored that you are here. So let's go. All right. Number one, the superhero training. I guess we need to go ahead and let's just to make a commentary over the joke and the bleeped out words and the joke there. Tell us about that on this. How long did that bit go on in real time?
That probably lasted I don't know, that was for a few minutes. It was pretty funny though, because obviously that was like all unscripted, and Steven cooked up the name from the very beginning. So they were waiting to do the check-in with Will. And him destroying the ukulele was completely unscripted too. Like he just ran with it. It was hilarious.
It's like heard a big whack and I'm like, what?
And he's over there. And like they only showed him doing it with 2 shots. He continued to hit that thing on the cabinet until there was nothing left. He probably did it like 7 times. He was like smash, 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 and then he like holds up the end. There's like half of the stalk and strings hanging off it.
That's
hilarious.
That's awesome.
I thought the humor of this show landed much funnier than last week, our last show.
I feel the other way around. Interesting.
This episode was definitely that moment was the funniest thing that's happened this season for sure. Like that whole moment was great.
Yeah, Will was definitely caught off guard. It was fun to see him get legit caught off guard. He's like, "What? I'm the camp counselor of this place." So, yeah, that's the funniest thing.
That is funny. And so they did that purposefully to drag that in, though, which is pretty darn funny, right? So. All right, thoughts on the build?
So what are the power functions? So we have spinning at the top, spinning in the middle. The car moves with the character, and
I like
then
the car.
Is there anything else, or is that it?
Oh, you've got the spinning fire on the side, I think.
Wait. Fire and ice both spin. Yeah, and actually, guys, this didn't show up in the episode. I'm not sure why, but the giant superhero on the side that's lifting the car actually lifts with the car.
I was going to ask about that because I think what happened to beauty shots, if I recall, a lot of stuff gets turned off. It's not all presented correctly as you want it. So I was going to ask about that because he was holding still, but I'm like, there's no way they missed that opportunity to have him moving with the car because that function was just so good.
Right. So in the actual build, right, the giant guy's like lifting the car up and then setting it back down again, and they had it on like a delay timer. So he'd like lift it, put it back down, then in like a few seconds he would do it over again. But
oh, that's cool.
I have to say one detail I really like is the speed animation or the speed guy with the stretched lines. That's something you see literally in like brick film animations with speedy characters, and I like that's just a fun thing to see. Yeah, with the colors stretched out. That's cool.
Okay, I see that now. I didn't see that earlier, so that's cool. That's cool. Everybody went minifig scale on that. Was that? I mean, I was that in the brief, or is that just the logical way to do this?
I actually don't remember. Do you remember, Ethan? Was that a requirement for this one?
It feels like it, but it's kind of a blur. Honestly, I don't remember.
Like that.
It might have been a requirement. I don't remember. I kind of purged this episode from my mind for the most part. So.
Yeah, we need to get to that since you're here.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yes, thank you, Ethan. Thank you. Yeah. Obviously, you know. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and say thank you now, or do we need to wait?
There's an entire interview bit where like I'm profusely thanking Ethan and Dom, and they use none of it.
Hey, they want us very unlikable, Greg. That's like
I'm
sorry.
I've seen your TikTok, Ethan. I know that what you do in 10 minutes is villainy. Selfish kid.
All right, so Steven's build there. There's a lot more than meets the eye, which it seems like the thing. All right, so let's go to the next one there.
All right, what do we got?
Yeah. Sorry, having
technical difficulties.
There it is.
Here we go.
So this is an interesting one. The motion, I was getting some Squid Games vibes with this whole tug of war over lava. Like, what happens if they lose?
Oh yeah,
like, there's a lot of child endangerment going on with this episode.
Yeah, this is their second violent themed thing, and all that kind of stuff. So
especially for pediatric doctors.
Pediatricians, yeah,
very hard.
They'd be out if there wasn't violence in the world,
I think they were trying to
more than
intimidate
one way
the
to do
firefight.
medicine.
Yeah.
What was
Have y'all
that?
seen Spy Kids? The lava is fake.
Oh yeah, there you go. The floor is lava.
I personally love this. I love the surfboarders. I like the motion in it. I love the colors and how the lava just rock. I thought it was great. I love the sign. I mean, it's not super complicated. I just like the way it looks. So this was definitely my favorite.
Yeah,
this is nitpicky, but I think there was a missed opportunity, and maybe this did happen. I don't know, but the spout of lava, did it spin? Like, or if it didn't, like, I don't think I remember it spinning. Like, why
Actually,
not make it spin?
I'm pretty sure that it did spin, and I think you can even tell if you look at this picture, because I think you can tell from this picture that the bricks are not in line with the flow.
Yep. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You're right.
Yeah,
But they didn't show that on there either, because I noticed it was static.
Yeah, more than one of the beauties, they like missed functions. So like in our build, there was 4 different functions, and in some other builds, there were multiple ones. But I think I agree with you guys. To be honest, this was actually probably my favorite camp. Like, really great concept, well executed. The surfing movement was awesome. And the other thing they didn't show in the beauties was all of the little rock monster counselors. Those are all light bricks, so they're all glowing red. From
That's cool. That's
cool.
But remember, Greg, had this won, you would have not gotten the golden brick. So,
or maybe you would have. You never know.
Or maybe, yeah, right.
You never know.
I do have to say, it's nice to see really good rock work. Like in the time that you have, 11 hours, it's really refreshing to see a really sweet looking mountain. Just like we've seen a couple, but this one really stands out for its sheer volume, and the lava color is like dead on perfect. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Really
like, a bit
apocalypse.
Got so much good color, but also it's like done so well that it's just like, this one's awesome.
The gradient of color.
Yeah, and you do get a feel of that lava moving in the way they've done that and everything. So, we lost Greg. The baby must have called. So,
So I do want to point out real quick, and we've only been 2 images in here, and both Greg and Ethan have pointed out the fact that we didn't get to see all the details and all the cool things in these builds, and that has been a consistent thing all season. And I know it's the soapbox that I'll die on, and that we'll never get the hour-and-a-half episode that Greg directs, but that's what we want. We want some more details of the builds because we're missing out. I'm glad you guys are on here to tell us the things we missed, because there's so much we missed because of these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done with that tangent. We can move on to the next one.
Well, yeah. I mean, if why build all this stuff and they're going to judge you against it, they don't show it and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
All right, Emily into Dragon Camp. What are your thoughts?
I like this one.
Yeah, we already talked about the motors and what could have happened, but
was that pre-show or post-show or in-show? I don't remember.
In-show.
Was it in-show? Okay, all right. We talk about so many cool things here in the pre-show that I forget.
Yeah, because Jeff theorized that possibly the motors they were supposed to go opposite of each other, and they ended up going the same way or something, and or something locked up.
It was moving, right? Like there was motion there. I just think it was the motors were fighting each other.
This is like a very good example of like how different they went with the rock work, like just with the lava one, and then you have these big plate rocks kind of covering that structure. I thought it was really interesting technique. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I thought it was cool that it was different, you know.
It leaves a lot of holes, but it does have a very abstract vibe to it. So pros and cons.
Greg, you were saying something about your theory on why it wasn't moving.
Oh, I actually know why it wasn't, and my turn to be a little bit ruthless. So they definitely got like a grace period to fix their motors because you were required to have at least 2 motors operating. That entire top of the Dragonspire, guys, is operating off of one Technic motor.
Oh, okay.
So that motor is absolutely overburdened. And then on top of that, you have like a ridiculous amount of gearing going from that motor up the column and then out either arm because the dragons are not only spinning, but their heads go up and down. So that's a ridiculous amount of strain to put on one motor. So what actually happened was, and you could see one of the shots earlier when Liam puts it back on the top, the whole thing's just on this one Technic axle.
Yeah.
So it was a really good idea, but just it was asking way too much of the power functions.
Okay.
Powered up. Those feeble powered up. The power functions are much stronger.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I did see how much gearing went into those like support beams. Like, and I was like, oh wow, that's a lot of gears going out to the heads. Like it was a lot of function.
Yeah, well, I love the characters. I love all the marshmallows going around are getting How to Train Your Dragon vibes. And Castle, because Castle was included. You could do Castle. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, but not space.
Yeah,
not space. I like it. The foliage is good. It's a strong, very safe, very strong build.
Did this one actually have a sign?
Oh yeah,
no.
Right.
Oh, because I thought you said the signs had to be on there. Like I thought that was one of the. Or was it just you needed to know the name of the
name?
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Hey.
Monster Camp.
Monster Camp.
When I was doing screenshots of the show earlier today, they did not do a title card for Dom and Ethan's Monster Camp.
Interesting.
Really?
They did all sorts of zoom in, zoom out shots and stuff, but they didn't do a title card. So this is the best I could get of a screenshot.
They want people to dislike us.
I'm afraid you're right. You guys are the de facto villains of this.
Yeah,
season.
did you watch
no
the
question.
pirate ship episode? Man.
Yes, I did. I have some questions at the end for you guys, actually, just to clarify.
Oh,
But
Ethan, you're
I like
so
your build.
unlikable.
I know.
I was gonna say you're the worst person I've ever.
Yeah. I didn't think we would get any screen time in the pirate ship episode. Oh man, we got the screen time.
But I really, first of all, you guys killed it with the foliage. Like it looks alive. Like all the flowers, all the curvy grass bits and everything. And every house has a nice, unique vibe to it. It feels nice and full. And the motion was all really spot on too. Like all the jerking around, like tentacles and stuff.
That was all dumb. The motors were dumb. I did the foliage.
Kudos to him.
I'm really curious about your character motors too, because like, didn't the character in the back have like multiple like articulating movements too?
His
like
arms were
how did you-
alternating like this.
That was really cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
Right.
this was me and Dom were on the same page, and this was a really enjoyable build because we got the buildings done pretty quick. One thing that I am disappointed that I didn't show is, I think I said this earlier, but that monster house in the back, that was something I was pretty proud of, and also the
Next to the bell?
cafeteria. Yes. And
Gotcha.
the cafeteria was also really fun. I had like a monster roof, which was really fun. I like the yellow color, the bright colors with all the monsters, which is really fun. And we had a few brick built monsters besides the big one. We even have one in the cafeteria eating. We had a lot of Easter eggs with monsters, which was really cool.
So, hey, I have a question. Since y'all did use minifig, is there just like a vastest minifig bucket, or are they? You got to build your minifigs and piece them together, or are they already built minifigs? How does the minifig part work in the brick pit?
There's basically, I don't know if we had to build each figure, which definitely, if you want to have that, personality with a build, it can definitely take some time. But I don't remember if they're all just one bin or if there's a bin of heads, legs, and torsos. I think that's how it was. I had a bin of heads, bin of torsos, bin of legs, and you had to just build the characters like that.
That can take time too, eh?
I had a question about that. Our minifigure selection for season 2 was, if I remember correctly, mostly city stuff. Like it was it was just one bin, I think, full of just random minifig stuff, if I recall correctly. So I'm curious, did you guys like the selection of minifigure stuff? Was it like
No,
pretty
it was
decent?
horrible.
It's horrible. Ethan, horrible as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
I remember
horrible
Dom
as well.
found
There you go.
it was all city figures except I believe Dom found like a 1999 Luke Skywalker head in there. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
I believe,
No
I'm sure.
way.
I mean, that's such a dumb. I'm sure that head is somewhere in here.
That's crazy.
That's cool. Y'all violated the copyright rule. You put a Star Wars figure in this. That's hilarious.
Amazing.
Allegedly.
Yeah, thumbs down.
Oh, sorry.
I'm kidding. That's fun. Oh, this
All
is
right.
interesting.
Cloud Camp, which they claimed only looked like a camp because they put the word camp on it and everything. In that, yeah. So, and this has the spinning four-leaf clover in the middle and all that kind of stuff. Your thoughts on this?
I mean, I liked it. I can understand why they were the bottom of the pack because there isn't really the camp side of it. I mean, as they were saying it, I was like, you could have easily between these 4 clouds in the corner area, you could have put another set of clouds and actually had the camp stuff on each of those, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a time issue or it's just they just didn't think about it, right? Like,
I think I remember them getting feedback from Amy and Jamie, and they said that they added more camp stuff in. So like they added in the campfire and that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of issues when we think of camp, we think of like trees and like that kind of stuff, which is hard in the cloud world because there's just not that stuff. I think this front one with where you see the trees has a campfire on it and they're all roasting marshmallows.
I found it weird though in the episode that every time they said we're added some camp stuff, they zoomed in on a magnifying glass. I was like, burning ants? Is that what we're doing?
Die.
Maybe camp is different in Canada. Yeah, I don't.
Those Canadian camps and their magnifying glasses,
I tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I didn't really get that one, but anyway.
Magnifying camp.
I almost wonder if they ran into the classic blunder of we've planned this all out, and if they were to turn around and retool it, they would have had they would have been in that problem that we've seen happen. So.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I believe that day you had 3 hours of build time and you had to come up with a name for it.
Yeah.
So after that first day.
Very true, Moto.
When you come up with a name.
Yeah.
So here we go. All about jump on a soapbox for a second. Greg's hot takes on episode 7. I will never not be frustrated about this episode, and I'll explain why. So the way that they presented it to us, which in fact some of this is actually in the edit, to be fair. But the way that they presented it to us was they literally said, you need to build a fantasy camp, but don't just think fantasy, go even more fantastical. Those are the judges' words, right? Like, this camp needs to be out of this world, like nothing you've ever seen.
But
And
not
you're
in
like,
space.
okay, all right. So I'm thinking not like a normal summer camp. I mean, I'm a Boy Scout. Like, I went to summer camp every single year, all those camp experiences, staying in tents, going to huge fires, trail hiking, sailing on boats, all those things, right? So you're like, well, this is going to look like nothing you've ever seen. Because if you want me to do it, if you want me to make camps out of this world, well, it's not going to be a normal camp. So then the two teams that take the concept all the way to 11 are the two teams that end up in the bottom. Unbelievable. And, like, this 1 second here, guys. All right. It is maybe fair to say, thank you very much. It's maybe fair to say that two of the strongest teams, I will advocate for that, we're the two that ended up at the bottom on this one.
I think you're right.
Hey, Greg, I 100% agree with you.
Hold on, Ethan. I'm getting to you. So, they're over there like, oh, it's not campy enough. And you're like, I built freaking flying whales, man. What do you think they do? Spin around campfires? Here's the thing. This is what Ethan and Dom told us. Now, I don't know if they told you this. Ethan, did you say this in your intro earlier? They literally told us we could not think of a fantasy idea enough. So we thought, let's just build a regular summer camp and make it monster. And then the judges are like, just kidding. Backpedal. A themed normal summer camp is what we wanted. And like, then get out of here with your more fantastical out of this world ideas. All right, I'm done. I'm up.
Bravo.
I was literally sitting at home watching this when they said not enough camp features, and I was like, they asked them not to make a traditional camp. How are they criticizing people for pushing the boundaries and not doing traditional things? I was sitting there watching it, questioning the judges.
So then maybe that's, if they had the option to make this an optional, like everybody's safe, that could have been another reason why they could have done it if they had that option. Because they realized they
basically screwed over the two strongest building teams by not communicating enough. So then they said, oh, well, maybe we'll just not send anybody home this week.
Especially when Amy and Jamie were calling up the two lowest teams, Amy was almost crying. Like, she had that look in her face that she was like going to be sending home someone that she liked. When she called Nick and Stacy up, at least I remember
but
that.
She cries for when she sends everybody home. So that's.
But like, did she even know that they weren't sending someone home? You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like either she was acting a lot or she thought they were actually going home too. Like, I don't know.
All right, so let's ask this question because I said this in the beginning that it's the artistic editing that they've been doing with a few things in here, and that the fact that when they got to the end of this episode and Will's explanation that nobody was going home and it was like, bye folks, see you next week, it was very not clean, very abrupt, it was not normal. It didn't feel normal at all in any way, shape, or form. Can you guys, without getting in trouble, tell us how that ending was in reality versus what we saw on the show?
I have a follow-up question when you're done with that, actually. Go ahead.
Be ready with your thumbs up and thumbs down, what they can say.
No thumbs down in the comments already.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a hard one. Yeah, it's kind of hard, isn't it? I mean, you guys know what you're doing. Greg, you know what you're doing, but it's like...
Silence speaks a lot. So.
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Judge. Try it. Yeah.
Was the ending as when the reveal, was it just as jarring to you as it was on TV?
That's a better, yeah.
Was it weird?
No, I didn't really feel like it was weird in studio. Yeah, it's just there have been some kind of, I don't know, odd editing decisions this season. Like I'll be the first person to stand up and say that the way that they represented Ethan and Dom was not accurate at all.
Right.
We actually got along really well with them. They're like, they're not wrong when they say like we're kind of like bros on set. Like we literally were. We'd hang out with each other when we were, offset and stuff. We had a good time. So like I don't I think Dom's input especially was tactical, but it was like tactical in a very good natured way. And then that shot of him being like, what the heck? That's completely edited out of context. Like,
I was
that's not
suspicious of that.
yeah, you're like, that's not what happened. And so yeah, we are forever grateful to them. And like I said, I adamantly said that in our interview, and then of course they just didn't use it.
I'll tell you this, Greg. I didn't feel like you guys were ungrateful for the brick. I didn't feel that from you guys. You had these big smiles on your faces. I'm like, no, they liked that. They appreciated that. So I didn't think you guys were brushing it off at all, personally.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, because I hope people aren't like, oh, yeah, those guys are such punks. And I'm like, we were really grateful. Like, I don't know. But oh well, they edited it how they went.
Can I comment on that real quick? Mathematically, the show, if they go for the same number of episodes, it's kind of complicated, but if you want 3 teams in the top 3, which I think they do, then you have to you must have an episode where nobody goes home. That's just that's just what you have to do. And this season is no different. It was the same with us. I think, in my hot take, I have no way to prove this. I think a lot of these builds, Moto commented, a lot of these builds, this one included, the line is getting thinner and thinner, like they're getting closer and closer. Everyone's it's super competitive. I think the judges, maybe they wanted to see the golden brick hang out more without calling that into question, whether it was supposed to be there or not. And I also think that all the builds were really close, frankly. Even the worst ones in this episode, big quotations, had a lot to offer. Yeah. And I think that the judges felt like, okay, the judges and maybe whoever else probably felt like, you know what, this is a good opportunity. Let's just not send anybody home. We have to have an episode where nobody goes home. We like the builds. Maybe they said something different. Maybe they felt something different off camera, perhaps. And they said, you know what, maybe this is a good opportunity for us to not send anybody home. The golden brick stays in play. Dom, you can get your parts. And the builds, we don't have to bash one that we kind of fudged. So maybe everything the stars aligned and said, we're just not going to send anybody home.
However, the number of episodes for the number of contestants prior to bringing Dom and Ethan in would have fallen in that category. But when they brought Dom and Ethan in, it bumps that out. So actually, we either wind up seeing 2 teams going home or we wind up seeing 4 teams in the finale. That's just my math. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Possibly.
So we know that Ethan and Greg can't comment on that, but
yeah, we can't. We should probably move on.
I will say
that's our
more spoilers happen.
Yeah.
So, oh, I like this one.
Yeah, this one was awesome.
Yeah, love this one.
It didn't get a lot of time.
It did not.
No.
But they got called out for.
I'll harp on the fact we don't get to see enough of the builds.
Yeah. Was this the one that got called out for the cabins that don't really look much like cabins?
Bunkers, they said.
They looked too much like cabins was the problem. Yeah. They weren't oozy enough. If you're going to throw ooze on everything, then you got to throw ooze on the cabins too.
So there you go. You got one guy who's off camp, and then they make a camp, and they get dinged for being on camp, making a camp. So I'm like you guys. I don't get it.
Confusing.
I like the alien heads, by the way, on the little dudes.
Yeah.
The trees are
trees.
The trees are fantastic.
So good.
It's just a clear idea executed well. I feel like.
Yeah,
that's
the colors are great. Those trees in the background are fantastic.
Visually,
it's a great build.
Is it David and Emily?
David
and Emily.
Yeah.
These guys have always been able to execute a plan really good. Maybe not their theme, their prompt is usually almost dead on every time. So kudos to them. Mm-hmm. If they had changed their roofs to pink, they would have been in the top 2. I don't know. That's just my hot take, but
I love the trees. The only ones that did like a ropes course, which I feel like it was one of those camp icons that could have been in other builds too. But ropes course is a great idea. So
there was a bridge in the lava one. I don't know if it was considered a ropes.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is in the awesome trees.
Yeah, and that's the truth. Those cabins are sitting in pools of ooze if you look down in there. So that's cool. And kudos on Lego for having like apparently a bazillion trans neon green chains. So where did those come from?
They weren't in my season, I'll tell you that. That's cool.
Interesting.
Maybe that's why they ended up with green instead of pink.
Let me ask the question then. Let me ask that to you guys who were on. Like, is there ever a moment where you're like, you need a piece and it's not in the brick pit? Can you ask for it and they'll pull one out? Or like, what do you do when you need that specific piece? Like,
come
What do
up
you
with
do?
a different solution.
Okay.
Go with Plan B.
being a
Plan B
Lego
doesn't work. Go to
master.
Plan C.
Do you
Do
guys
they
remember?
ever change the parts on the wall for different ones, or is it always the same?
So it's basically this. They would change things a little bit, like for if a specific episode had a theme. So like there's a specific episodes that were. I have to be careful how I say it. Specific episodes that had a theme, they would pull out like some specific minifigs and parts for it. So like Jurassic's a good version of this, right? Like they brought out a bunch of Jurassic World themed dinos and minifigs that were only there for that episode. Other than that, they weren't there. So for people that wanted to, that was an option.
Hello.
But most of the time, it's the same. It's the same selection of parts and figs and everything. So.
Did you?
Okay.
Did anybody remember what
Give
the
you a
motor?
seal of approval on your answering of that question.
Thank you, Moto.
Did anybody remember what the actual powered up function was in this one?
Oh,
They had the pool that moved like crazy.
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
which
That
was
was
funny
cool.
because at the beginning of the episode, Jamie was showing that same type of thing, and I had recently saw J.K. Brickworks do that as well. Like, so I was like, oh, hey, that's interesting. Like, because he would not have had anything to do with that because he's up here in Canada as well. But it was just kind of funny that it was like the exact same design for that thing, which was like the exact same wheels and anything. But anyways, that was just one of my observations.
That one mock, I believe, came out at a very similar time when this episode was filmed, which was really cool.
Yeah, that is
He
kind of
probably looked it up because that's what I would have done.
I even saw it. I was
We were
like,
looking
"Ooh."
up J.K. Brickworks all day on Sunday. It was like research.
Oh, okay. So that was about to be my question. Is how I know you can access the World Wide Webs when you're off camera and everything. So were you guys deep diving? You're like, okay, tomorrow we got to come up with something. Let's go look for a thing. Did y'all do that?
No.
Wow.
Wow. Greg says no. Greg
Wow.
knows.
Usually
I'm
just
glad.
pen and paper.
That engineering
So,
background.
so I'll tell you, they did not make any effort to stop us from researching anything on our downtime for season 2, and they would recommended that we do our research, look up cool techniques. Don't cop anything. We're gonna watch out for that, but we want original stuff. But yeah, they said if you guys want to look up anything, we know that this stuff is tricky and not everybody does this all the time, so help yourself. And that's what they told us. So.
Okay, cool.
Because they want to see nice models just as much as we do. So.
You know what would have been funny on your season? Somebody had looked up your rock work and then copied it and presented it in the show, and you would be like, "I built that 5 years ago."
I don't think I could have. I wouldn't think I'm that observant.
Also, Steve, you guys were also locked in your rooms because of COVID too. So it's not like they couldn't say you're not allowed to have internet.
Not locked, but yeah, basically locked.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like you didn't really have much choices of what you could do. You couldn't leave the building type thing.
Yeah, if you had energy, we would do our research a little bit.
Yeah,
because we didn't know how to do motion at all. Me and Mark, I'm going to freely admit that one. We didn't know what we were doing. So we did research a bit at JK Brickworks, just the really basic stuff, like just some basic crank shafts and everything. Yeah.
You're saying that because Moto's watching, but anyway, don't we? Just the basics, not the advanced stuff, right?
No, we
right.
didn't make the gophers.
Here we go.
There you are, man. There you are. So, Greg, how long? This was getting into it. You tore apart the big roller coaster. Was that really quick in, or how deep were y'all in? The show looked like you were like 10 minutes from presenting, and you pulled the thing off. So,
we pulled it pretty far in. So, let's see. So I think we had 11 hours to do camp. I want to say we probably pulled the roller coaster around like the 8-hour mark.
Wow.
Okay. And what ended up going in that spot?
So you can see we actually kept the top structure up there, and we turned it into a sign for the camp instead. And the idea was that Wild Willie had like converted what was an old theme park to turn into the camp. So anyways, what this idea in the front, this thing, the drop and plop, is like where the whales start doing their simulations, like getting the little airborne and going into the pool. And so that originally went from the back corner all the way around that left side and then across the front. But I was actually running into problems early on of getting too much centrifugal force on the outside of the curve and that front left corner, which, to be fair, Brendan had warned me would probably happen. And so even though they obviously got more speed initially, they lost enough on the centrifugal force that they actually weren't clearing the jump to make it into the pool. So I ended up disconnecting it and doing the drop and the plop right in the front. But then we decided to keep the remnants of the old coaster because something the judges had previously stressed was like, hey, if you've built something, don't tear it out. Find a way to use it. So we're like, okay, well, if he's taking over this old theme park, like, this roller coaster's been destroyed. So we covered it with like a bunch of leaves and vines and things, like it had been old and overgrown and abandoned, and had like the end of the track like broken off, like this roller coaster had broken apart, and he'd repurposed part of it but left the other part. But then like they came over to us, I think like the third time, and we're basically like, without saying it, they pretty much said, we still don't like this. It looks too much like a theme park. And I was like, well, to me, this is getting pretty clear that like we have to pull it. So even though it was laid in, I was like, I feel like this is the third time they've said, get rid of it. So we ultimately made a decision to pull it.
But
Now,
there again, you're trying to up the game of what a camp is and not make it a boring, camp. And so I definitely see the frustration in that. And that is kind of weird. So
yeah.
All right.
Why are there two marks?
Well, prompt aside, what's that? Oh, there are two marks.
We're cloning marks.
Sorry, Firefly crashed on me.
This is weird.
Well, we are definitely in a time displace continuum at this point in time. We're going to what happened to stub mark.
Now they SWAT. What in the world?
Can you rename them to Fleet Nork 2 or something?
What happens if future Mark sees past Mark? Does it create a hole in the space time?
Well, no, they both start magneting and then they combine.
We're already in a branch, so
I will say something real quick though, and Jamie actually said this. That mechanism that Brendan built in the middle of the flight simulator, having both vertical motion and rotational motion at the same time. He built that in 11 hours from start to finish, and that thing was rock solid. Like, it was executed flawlessly every time. And Jamie told us, he said, if we had built that in an official Lego design workshop, like an official design shop, he said we'd probably spend a week designing it. And from start to finish, it took Brendan 11 hours. And get this, even at the top and bottom, so those gear tracks that go up and down the center column, at the top and bottom, just in case you mistimed doing the vertical motion, those gear tracks actually had like 2 studs worth of slip. And so the gears would just disconnect at the bottom and the tracks would slip up so that you wouldn't like strain the gear at the bottom. And then when you reverse it, they would just re-engage with the bottom of the rails, pull the rails back down, and it would climb again. Like, it was crazy. So like, did we get points for it for being a technical challenge? I guess not. But Jamie was like, this is so absurd. Like, the fact that you pulled this off in 11 hours is mad. So props for Brendan for that. It was super cool. And
but we're gonna put you in the bottom too, so
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
what did the rest of you guys think about that camp though? Like, let it rip.
Well, okay. So there's the 4 of us were texting, and I'm like, I don't know who's in the bottom. I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay. I mean, I've already picked my ride or dies, and Greg, you're one of them. And I'm like, we all kind of picked our top 2, and I'm like, well, crap, my top 2s are the bottom 2s today and everything. No offense, Ethan. You weren't in the show yet, but kind of thing. So I'm like, crap, they're going to send a big team home. Crap, this is going to be a big shakeup on the show. Oh, nobody's going. Bye. And wow. But you guys, and I'm going to say, Nick and Stacy, theirs had motion all over the place in their build. So the technical part, the 2 people that killed it technically, I'm thinking everybody did great technically, but had the most dynamic motion in the show were about to leave. And I think they pulled the, hey, let's not kick off. I wonder if that's a card they could pull, and they pulled that when they kind of saw what was going on. That's my
I don't know.
I really do. I'll say this. This challenge really reminds me of the Flip My Block, the house building challenge. You have to build a house, and you have to build it with lots and lots of motion. It's a loose prompt. You guys had it different though. You had a complicated prompt. You said first they said, okay, we want you to do something crazy, and then they said, well, no, dial it back. That sounds like a big disconnect. I don't know where, but I'll say it again. I hope I'm not giving Lego Masters too much credit, because they could be ridiculous. We all know that. But I do feel like they felt like the team that is the worst has this unreal rotating. What are those called? Da Vinci's Dream. What's that ride called? What did you guys call it? The flight simulator? The flight
we call it
simulator,
flight
right?
simulator. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, this insane flight simulator. That is one of the most advanced things I've ever seen on Lego Masters, period. Like, come on, that was amazing. And then you go over to yet another masterpiece, which was Nick and Stacey's, when they have the double spinning thing. That's not easy. I don't know how to do that. Like, a lot of us here would struggle with something like that. And it looked fantastic. So I think the prompt in that historically is something that they really push that a lot of just general audience kind of forgets. And even in the moment contestants, they kind of like, look at all these parts, look at all this freedom. I could just make something super cool. Now's my chance to shine. And the prompt usually just slides that at the back of the head. It happens. It happens a lot, but the prompt is 30% of the challenge is the prompt. The other is build technique and the other is creativity. So I think they knew somewhere that they goofed and they felt like, okay, we can't punish them. There's going to be riots. This is a nice build. They're all nice builds. The worst builds are great. The best builds are just as good as the worst builds. That line is gone. So they figured, let's keep the golden brick in play. I still think that's the case. And
every team delivered in this challenge too. Like that is like all of them were amazing. And I think it was earlier. The margins are so small, and it does feel like we've reached that point in the competition where it's like you're gonna have to send home a great build, and like the prompt. I think you're right. Yeah, like the prompt was so unclear, and the fact that they kept coming back to the contestants to be like, well, we want this, we don't want that. It's like, I think it probably was a good call on their part to just be like, all right, next challenge, we'll do it better, so.
And with the editing, I was happy that no one went home. The editing kind of twisted it where we were upset. I was very happy.
Can I touch on that a little bit?
Every time. It's crazy.
There's always a villain. It's a shame.
Oh. Wait, I'm sorry. I was not ready with Dom. I'm sorry. He's not here. So there's Dom.
There he is.
There he is.
Look at that villain. He looks like a Game of Thrones character.
Before like they announced lowest teams, best teams, I was sitting there going, the worst one here was just the dragons going backwards. That was the worst thing that I saw.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you can't punish them for that because that's just, we saw it working the right way, a mechanical issue, whatever.
Many times. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, if that's the worst thing and I was like, those guys are going to be gone because their dragons were flying backwards, because that's the worst thing I could think of that was from all the models I saw.
Maybe this is just me, but I mean, I feel like historically the US show, the time limits keep getting shorter, and especially for one with power functions, I would be adding 2-3 hours onto that, maybe to 11 hours to make it 13 or 12 at least. Like, I don't know if that plays into any of this, but I just feel like add some time, let the team polish a little bit more. I don't know, but it's 11 hours.
Right. If you look at Australia, I remember there's season 3, their first episode, our first episode in season 4. I don't remember you guys, but our season 2, we had 14 hours. Australia gets 17 hours.
Wow.
And their base plate is half the size so to fill. Wow. And I'm like, that's almost the finale. So it's so much. I wouldn't say it's easier, but it's way more relaxed over there versus here. You get 8 hours to build a giant pirate ship. Minimum 2. We had a minimum of 3 motions in our house. That was the minimum. You have to have 3 things moving at minimum. So yeah, it's harder. It's boot camp. Yeah.
And we also get really awesome builds on Lego Masters Australia's because they have that time to kind of develop things that the US just doesn't have time for. Like, you have to, like, bare bones, what are we going to make sure we have on there to meet the brief? Mad props to all y'all who have done it.
So yeah, like I said, the disclaimer is we are back, next day quarterback, whatever. We haven't been there, and I mean, you guys who have, the ropes better. But even it sounds like for y'all were struggling. All right, so Greg, you're up there. Let's just talk about that last moment. you're up there with your brother. You're there with Nick and Stacy. I mean, you're like, who did you think was going? I mean, in your mind, were y'all dead, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure. I guess I wasn't going to be arrogant enough to assume that we were just safe even from the bottom two. But the only thing that I was kind of hoping was that, honestly, that central mechanism would be enough if it came down to like we have to send one of these two home because of how crazy it was. And Jamie emphasized that more than once, during the episode and in the actual judging. So that was my only hope, was like, okay, if they feel like both camps were okay. So for me, it was kind of like the situation with the dogs. Sorry, Ethan, where it was like there were two teams that failed to meet one criteria, being able to walk down the dog walk. So then it came down to like, well, who sculpted a more accurate model of their dog? And that was Ethan and Dom. Like people on Reddit were like, oh, Ethan and Dom's dog broke apart worse. And I'm like, okay, none of that matters. There were two criterias. One, go down the dog walk. Two, make a lifelike replica. And both dogs failed to go down the dog walk. Decapitation was a disqualifying thing. And so then as far as that goes, Ethan and Dom's was more accurate. So I kind of hoped like maybe it was like that, right? Where it's like, okay, if both camps failed to be campy enough, it was also a power functions or powered up challenge. So maybe our powered up going even a step further would be enough to save us. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely disconcerting. And you have to remember, like, we just came off 2 back-to-back wins, right? So it's like you had 5 and 6, and like 5 we kind of did pretty good, and then
you nailed it, frankly.
6 we managed to squeak out a win, and then it's like we're feeling great. We're starting to we feel like we're kind of coming into our groove in the competition, and then in 7 we end up in the bottom on what overall we still felt like was a pretty good build. So it was like a whiplash, I guess, is the best. You're just like, what is happening right now? Like
the roller coaster.
The roller coaster. For sure. A roller coaster where they ripped part of it out. So there was definitely a little bit of like shock. I'm not like quite sure what to think about this, I think. But then they pulled the like no one's getting eliminated, and that was definitely a relieving moment because you're like, okay, like we were in no way ready to be done with the competition.
Well, and you had a gold brick burning a hole in your pocket that you wouldn't be able to use.
Yeah,
which
that's
interesting strategy, but
that is interesting strategy. They are. So did you feel the burn where they're going home? Let's give them the brick. Did you?
I mean, honestly. I did, like, Dom had his whole idea. They got us sushi. So I was like, that's our reason why.
You guys had sushi too?
Yeah. Like, literally. So, like, Amy, I forget who, Amy or Jamie, say, so why did y'all pick Brendan and Greg? I literally just stand there and say, they bought us sushi. And
I wish they had left that in. It would have been more convenient, but it would have gone against the fact that you guys are the villains. And
you're the villains. But you took that sushi from them and ate it, so you're bad. So
they bought the golden brick. There could have been even more controversy.
Right, that's exactly what which, ironically, guys, this had happened like a few days before. It had zero relation to the episode, but like it just did happen to coincidentally work out that we had hit it off really well with Ethan and Dom, so we were totally buddies. And then like they happened to win that episode, and so we're forever grateful that they picked us because it just means that we have that entrance, and we like to think that we're a pretty competitive team. So I guess you'll have to wait and see if we ever need it or not.
Think you got 2 in a row. No one gets 2 in a row. I think the last people was Mark and Boone to get 2 in a row, I think.
Well, no, Emily and Liam got 2 in a row.
Oh, my mistake.
Yeah. Because they won 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I did like that you guys didn't have any choice in like which one. You guys were like, yeah, sure, either is great because one's a golden brick and one's like 90,000 Legos. But it was fun as a viewer.
It's good TV
for you guys to
TV.
like pick. I don't know how fun it was for you because you wanted to be strategic, but it was fun as a viewer to watch. And I wish that they did more things like that throughout, where they were like, hey, like this is like the small prize for this one.
Yeah, and then they did that a little in season 1, didn't they? There were a couple of little side prizes, or you got whatever and everything.
Yeah, because there was like a hotel stay. There was a hotel stay that was farmed out for one thing at the New York, I think, facility or something like that.
Yeah, Tyler and them won that to go to the thing. Yeah, that's right. All right, Ethan, had you gotten the golden brick, who was going to get the 90,000 bricks?
It was still Brendan. Like like we wanted the bricks.
The
but it
sushi,
was
I
still
get it.
Brennan. Yeah, it was still Brennan and Greg.
Hey, that's
You still brought up your bros. That's it's yeah. That's how it's done.
Braden and Greg are like, "Woo, we're glad the sushi wasn't bad."
So I do have a thought, and I know we still have more of the season left to go, but and I know that they've announced that now they're accepting applications for season 4, and from what we've seen, and again, I'm going to be a little bit just reading the writing on the wall. I have no basis for this from statistics or anything like that, but it seems like you've got to be kooky enough to get on, and then your building skills are secondary, but yet it's supposed to be a building show, and then we don't get to see enough of the builds. So while I will always watch the show because it's all my people's, it's why wouldn't I watch my people? But at the same time, I'm kind of like, it's a train wreck because it's not Australia, it's not the Belgium show where we're getting Lego that we want to see. We are getting great builders. It's more about their building, and then the backstory is secondary. And it feels like to get on the US show, you've almost got to have, like you got to fill a checkbox or have some goofy thing. It's like, you're going on the what was it?
The Gong
Monty
Show.
Hall show or whatever. Coming down in a weird Halloween costume so you can get to pick door 1, 2, or 3. It wasn't so much about, oh, you know what you're doing. You're a good builder. That's why we're bringing you on the show. Thoughts?
Well,
Nope. Moto has put a comment in the chat.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
And he's not. And by the way, to the contestants in the room, he's not saying you guys are schlock builders with a big story.
No.
You guys are killing it. So the kind of thing. But there again, you also got to have a bit, right? I mean, is it more about the bit or the build when it comes to picking?
Can I mention that real quick then, whoever? But I'll say this, Dana. I agree with you a little bit on most of that. I'll say. Because Fox does underestimate its audience. There's no question. They underestimate their audience significantly compared to Australia and Europe. Because Australia loves their show, and it's what we're asking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think that Fox has their hands tied. They can't just put in an almost 2-hour episode TV show in a competitive slot with The Masked Singer and a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other fluff that I just don't think it's possible for an American market to do that. That being said, I feel like a lot of people, even though sure they don't have, there's a lot of layers in the Lego community, like for skill, for talent, for whatever, you name it, it exists. But it takes a lot to be on that show, and not everybody builds mocks the way we've perfected it. I don't want to say we, that so pretentiously like that, but there is an understanding of what a mock is.
The present company, we all know what mock building is versus we are now setting a new definition of what is mock building versus what is competition building. Because while they both have similar intricacies, we see completely different styles of builds from people compared to what they do personally versus what they've had to do on a show. For
so I'll
go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
I'll say a couple things about this. As far as the casting process goes, I will keep my opinions to myself, but when it comes
supposed to, by the way,
when it comes to the show itself, you have to remember, like, yes, it's interesting to watch interesting people on TV, and it's boring to watch boring people on TV, but it is ultimately a competition where you move forward or you go home because of Amy and Jamie's decision making. Okay,
right?
They are the judges. It is up to them. It is ultimately up to them, right? So that's what you have to realize. Like, when you're there and you're building in that space, you are building for those judges, and it's up to them. So regardless of how people get there or what they need to get there, you can, theorize about that all you want. But in terms of being on the show, you can set any of those things aside and realize it is legitimately about, am I building the kind of thing that Amy and Jamie want to see, that they feel at least sufficiently meets the brief, has something special about it, whatever, that will take me further in this competition or that will get me out of this competition. And that really is what it's about. So I think a big part of it is, and here's what's difficult, right? In terms of the contrast, there is what I would do as a mock builder. And I think the only thing that I built on the show that is like something I would build as a mock builder was what we built for episode 1. And then after that, I stopped building like a mock builder, and I tried to stop thinking like a mock builder, because that is not what you're doing. You are playing a different game. And so to your point earlier, right, about there's a difference between mock building and competition building, 100%. Like there's almost everything I built on Lego Masters, I would probably never choose to build myself, because it's not what I like building or what I care about or the level of detail. Like I built Mikey, and I really appreciate that people like that model. I like it, but I also kind of hate that model, because like I built a lifelike version of a giraffe at one point, and I spent 2 weeks building that model, and like down to every inch of the musculature, it's spot on to an actual giraffe. Now somebody else owns that model, so I can't show pictures of it, but that's what I want to do with Mikey. I would want to take that model and spend 2 weeks designing that model, and you would be like, there is nothing wrong about this. Like I can literally, every anatomical feature lines up with the real life dog, you know, down to the musculature and the proportions, all those things. So there is definitely a difference there. And again, just in a nutshell, when you're on the show, it is all about, are you building something that the judges think deserves to win? That's what is on the show. So
a counter question to that, because it's interesting that you point out of how you changed gears after episode 1. Now, during your application and audition process, you weren't thinking like that. You were thinking about how your builds are and what you're presenting and what you're showing them. How much do you think that was important in the application process, your builds?
Sorry, how much of which part do I think was important?
How much of your builds that you had done prior to being on the show that you showed to show your building abilities, or when you were, I don't know if you had to do like a streaming build before for part of your application process. I know there's certain people who have done certain different things depending on the seasons. So do you feel, how much of your building muscles were utilized during the application process compared to what you had to change and do later?
Sure. Okay. I think I understand what you're asking. So to answer, we're not really supposed to talk about the application process too much. So to sort of answer the question in a roundabout way, what I would say is your skills as a mock builder are not the first. So actually Moto's comment right there is perfect, right? They are 2 different entities. You have to basically win 2 completely different criteria. That's accurate. Wow. So I will say this, there were some things that I did in casting that I didn't carry over to the show, because when I was on the show, I was playing a different game. And it took us a couple episodes to figure out exactly what that game was. And so, I mean, like, obviously we'd watch prior seasons, like we'd done a lot of assessing and talking about it. And we like virtually worked through how we would have approached different challenges in the past. Like we'd pre-gamed a lot, right? But when you're actually there doing it in person and you're feeling out, you're like, okay, this is a little different than what I thought. So we did realize that we were playing a different game. So what I would say is there's getting on the show, and that's its own thing. And then I would say that doesn't carry over so much, because you'll see that there are builders where they might not even really be builders outside of the competition. But as stated previously, competition building is not the same as mock building. Right. So I think being a strong mock builder is certainly not going to hurt you if you want to apply for the show. It is only going to be beneficial, but that does not necessarily carry over to you being good on the show.
One thing I will mention this. It's easy to look at some builds and say, oh, that doesn't look very good, even on a competition standpoint. And that happens. Some builders go further than others. But I want to encourage people just in general. There are some builders on season 2 that some people on the dreaded Reddit criticized heavily.
I love reading Reddit. It's hilarious.
But they criticized some of my season 2 fam pretty harshly. And some of those people who were criticized would go on to do extremely well in the community later on. There's a couple teams I won't mention. I don't want to embarrass anybody. But it's very easy to say, like, oh, that doesn't look good. Well, go look up the person's actual work and go see how good they really are. And even post-show, people who weren't as interested in Lego have really risen and made some incredible stuff and are like 100% in the community. So it's not quite as simple as it looks. Like, oh, maybe they are really cool and they just put them on because they're really cool or interesting and not because of the bricks. It's very easy to say that, but if you dig a little deeper, it becomes a much different story. So I'll just say that.
And that's why we preface all the time. We know that you still got to be a builder to get on the show. I mean, in some way, shape, or form, what your level of skill or what your level of experience may vary. And that happens in the community no matter where you are and what you're doing.
It's true.
The line of questioning I was going for wasn't so much of whether everybody's qualified to be on the show. I agree completely that everybody who did what they needed to do, get on the show, and whether they succeeded on the show as well as they probably would have on something else is completely irrelevant because again, it's a different type of building style. I mean, Greg said it perfectly. After episode 1, they realized, well, we got to change completely. And I think that's
same story.
Yeah, we've seen the people who have gone further on the show realized it quick enough to realize, oh, this isn't how I normally build. I got to switch gears. And actually, now that we're in like season 3, getting ready for season 4, contestants going into season 4, if they're not seeing that ahead of time by going in, they're doing themselves a disjustice.
Yeah,
because that's what they got to be prepared for, I think.
So, got a question for Greg. So Greg talked about going through, watching the other shows, game planning, and then it was different. Do you think that exercise of at least thinking through what you would have done, do you think that was still helpful to you as a contestant, even though the actual process was maybe different than your expectation?
I think yes and no is how I'd answer that. So in one degree, yes, because I think flexing the muscles, even if you're doing something theoretically, like so I'm also in the Coast Guard, right? And I'm weapons trained, and actually I'm an expert marksman on pistol and some things. So we actually do what we call dry fire exercises with handguns. And that's where you literally practice holding the handgun with the right kind of grip and doing a trigger squeeze properly. And you can go through that like dozens and dozens of times before there ever being a round put in that weapon, right? So I think that there's still value in sort of walking through that exercise, like mocking it. Don't excuse the pun. Sort of mocking it beforehand to figure out how that play works. But when you get there in person, I do not think, and I would guess Stephen Neath would probably say the same thing, that you really can fully prepare yourself for what's going to happen until you're there on the show.
No.
Because
that has been a consistent comment.
Study the prior seasons, run through your mock challenges, like have your ideas about what you would do, and then they say, oh, build a character to ride on a freaking rodeo bull, and you're like, what?
Build a giant hat and walk around with it.
Yeah, right? You're like, I would never have thought of this. So it's like there's some value in it. And I was like, on season 3, now granted we had the advantage of having seen those seasons. If they had given us any challenge from season 1, we would have been like, this is a walk in the park. Like, what an easy day. Because
just kept getting crazier.
Yeah, they just keep getting crazier. And when you're like, put a character on a freaking bull, and you're just like,
I had a question for Ethan.
Lego go together and come apart again, right? Like you guys, anyway. So I think that here's what you have to absolutely be able to do. You got to be able to be agile on your feet. That's the biggest thing. Don't put yourself in a box. And then when you're on the show, it's just constantly flexing. It's like step left, step right, step left. Wait, nope, step left again. Like, and so you'll get into something, and you need to just sort of like. I think that there actually can be a real benefit to teams that maybe aren't as strong in terms of like mocking or building on the outside, because they can come at it with a more open-minded perspective. And so I think when you're sitting there like, what is total, like, what if there are no restraints here? What if I do something insane? Then like, send it, is it in line with what the prompt is? Going crazy in a controlled manner can actually be a really positive thing on the show. And I think you see that. I mean, like you've seen Emily and Liam do it a couple times, right? Where they're like, they did something. You're like, that's wild, dude, and they pull it off. So, I think that yes, there's benefit in doing that kind of practice beforehand, but ultimately know the heck out of the Lego system, like more than anything. Like be able to literally sit there and like they give you a like a parts list. You can know everything that's theoretically in the brick bed. I don't think I ever used it the entire time. I just like I know the system. I know what parts I want. I know how they work together. I understand 2 to 5 and what happens with the offset in the front of a headlight brick for like how I can tie things back in when I have a half plate offset from a bracket. Like I understand all those things about the system. That's what you really want to be familiar with. But at the end of the day, most of the time, advanced building techniques are not what is going to cause you to win or not. Like you'll see some builds that are not built in a very advanced manner at all, but because they did a good job of encapsulating color or story or meeting the brief points, that's why they got there. So I really think that the flexibility and the creative decision making, that's what's going to do a lot for you. Because if you're a good enough builder and you can apply those other two things, out of the box thinking and a lot of flexibility in how you build, that's what will cause you to do well on the show. So ultimately just going in, being like super open-minded and be like, I have no idea what they're going to throw at me, but then we're just going to figure it out, and that's the difference.
That is probably the best explanation I've heard. And I've talked to several cast members. So no, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Kuda, ditto. I was going to ask Ethan, did you guys real quick, I know we're getting, it's getting there. But I was gonna ask Ethan, did you research Lego Masters before getting on? Did you watch Australia and everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was watching Australia, and then when we were in I call it our days of isolation in our other hotel, I was watching more seasons of Australia because we did nothing. It was like I was mentally a wreck in the first episode we were.
Oh man.
Because I'm not as much as like I'm outdoorsy, not as much as Greg, but I like being outside and I'm Texas, that kind of explains the whole thing. I'm used to being outside, so that was definitely something that I had to get used. The hardest part of the show, that 9 days of isolation.
You were like, what is it like to see people again?
Yeah.
Were you in the same room as Dom, or did they give you 2 rooms when you were in isolation?
We had 2 rooms. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I mean, because that would have been a weird smell. But anyway, so all right, we've gone out an hour and a half here, but this has been fantastic conversation, an interesting episode and an interesting ending and an interesting results all around. It's really cool to get some inside info on the mechanics of the show and the brief and the judgment and all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. Thank you guys for joining with us. Greg, congratulations on the new blessing. And
thank you. Yeah,
just wondering, were those alarms going? Yep, go check on your kid. Was that what those alarms were that you had going off on your phone, or was that?
No, actually, I need to go jump over on Nick's Twitch, but I was having fun with you guys.
Yeah, forget that guy. Forget that guy. He won't come on my show. I asked.
Direct competition. All right, well, I'm gonna run over to that guy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we're logging off. Everybody, thank you all for being here. Be awesome and build awesome. We'll see you on Messy Monday, which won't have anything to do with Lego Masters. Have a good night, everybody. See ya.